Hello my friends, and welcome to another Squeaky Chimp tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these, which are super cute, super fun, and actually really easy to make. But there's just a couple of things that you need to kind of take into account when you're making them. So what they are is really simple, is they are something that you can stand up and you can attach photos to, you can attach business cards to. If you had a craft stall, you could attach your price lists to them, you know, or individual prices for items. They would be gorgeous for a wedding. Can you imagine if each of your guests had one of these with their name on? What a cute idea would that be? So the kind of options for what you can do with them is kind of endless. They'd make a lovely birthday present. So that is what we're going to be making today. So I'm going to show you what you're going to need in order to do it. So the first thing you're going to need are some of these, and I sell these in my Etsy store. I will leave a link in the description box, and they come in a pack of 10 and they are super cheap, so they are not an expensive item. And I do ship worldwide in case anyone is about to ask that question. All they are is stainless steel. They are a clip and they have a piece of twisted wire going down. So this is the starting point for these. This is what you're going to need in order to make one of these. So that's the first thing you're going to need. The second thing you're going to need are some beads. Now I've got a collection of beads here, and this is the bit that I wanted to talk to you about, and I am sorry if you're not keen on the waffle, so I will try and put some timestamps in the description box if you don't want to hear this and you just want to cut to the chase. But the important bit that we kind of need to think about when we're making these is we want these to stand up. So we want them to have something that has a flat bottom on the bottom bead. So although this bead here is lovely, it's wobbly. That is never going to stand up. And likewise, this one is nearly right. Oh, I've dropped a bead. This one is nearly right, but again, it's like a weeble. I don't know if anyone remember weebles, but they don't stand up. So what you need is a flat bottomed triangle bead. Okay, and then the other thing to take into account is what you don't want to do is choose a bead that is too long, because you've kind of, well, that's it. There's not really room for much else. So you've got some room for a bead at the bottom. So let's say this one was flat. You can put that one on there. But that, in terms of it, is it. And what I thought was quite nice with these ones is the fact that you've got a variety of shapes and you've actually got all sorts of different beads, and it kind of makes them look a little bit more funky. So you can absolutely just use 2 beads, or you can use lots of different beads. You can also use beads that are made out of polymer clay. So I've included these beads in the list because you could pop a little polymer clay bead in. That's not a problem either. So that is what you are going to be looking at in terms of beads. You're also, if you're going to be making a paper bead, if you're going to be making them with a paper bead roller, you're going to need a paper bead roller with approximately a 2mm roller. Now I've made these with a 2.5mm roller and they were fine. You could probably even go to a 3m, and it honestly wouldn't really make that much difference. But these ones are exactly the right size, 2mm, and these are 2mm. So that's what we're going to be using today. And these rollers are available in my Etsy store if you would like to purchase one, and they are interchangeable. So it's one roller and you get 4 different sized tips. Then you're also going to need some scissors and you're going to need some glue. So I will show you the next bit and then we will cut to the chase, I promise, and we will actually do the rolling. Okay, so what I have made for you, and will be available in my Etsy store as a digital download, and then once you've got it, you can print it as many times as you want, is I have made some sheets, and each sheet contains 21 templates, and there are 5 sheets in total. 4 of them are colour coordinated, so there's one like this, there's one like this, and then there's 2 more, all coordinated, but actually you can mix and match. The 5th one is exactly like this, that is empty. So what you can do is you could put a piece of scrapbooking paper in your printer, turn it over and print out your paper beads on the back, and then you can cut them and then you can use whatever paper you like. How cool is that? Now, the other thing to kind of consider is that this paper is quite thin. This paper is a little bit thicker. And when I made these beads, when I made these ones, I used about 6 to 8 strips because I used this really fine printer paper. So in order to get this bead to be quite large, I used quite a few strips. But on this one, I printed it out on, if I grab the last remnants of it, I actually printed the template out on glossy photographic paper, which then meant I only needed about 4 strips because it's that much thicker. So it really does depend on what paper you're going to print on as to how many strips you're going to need to roll at once in order to get this fundamental bead at the bottom right. These other beads are not such an issue. It's really this bead at the bottom that you want to have a large bottom surface. Right, let's get on to cutting. One of the things I've decided to give a bit of a try to this time is, instead of just going for a completely solid sort of triangle bell-shaped bead, is I'm actually going to have a go at starting with a strip and then adding the tapered triangles on afterwards. So I'm going to roll this. Now this will just make a tube bead. So that is all I'm looking for from this. And this hopefully will just kind of build up a bit more of an edge. So as you can see with my paper bead roller, what I'm doing is I'm supporting it with this end and then just twisting this. And this area, this end, stays exactly still in your hand. So it's such a nice bead roller to use. It's not rubbing against anything. Sometimes I find with other bead rollers is that you can get a bit of friction going on your hands, especially if you're using lots of them. But with this bead roller, this bit stays exactly still and it's just this that is moving round. So there is no friction. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a bit of glue to the end. Now remember, with paper beads you never need that much glue, but how much you need will depend on the type of paper that you're using. Set my glue down and I'm just going to finish this bead off. I always like to kind of roll it on my palm just to get, so you can really see now what I mean is actually this end is staying exactly this on its own, but actually this part of the bead roller is moving. So that's going to be my foundation of my bead, and I'm just going to squash it flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my strips, and I've got 3 of them for this one. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to just line them up a little bit. Now these are flat bottomed triangles, and that is what will give you that shape where you have one side that goes flat and one side that tapers in. So just make sure that you get all your strips around the right way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some glue to them. Never need to be too precious with your glue application. I mean, you don't want glue to be everywhere, but you equally don't have to be absolutely spot on with it. So I'm going to just give it a second just to take hold, and then I'm going to start and roll. And the side that I am most interested in is this side. I want this to be nice and flat. So I'm going to make sure that all my edges are nice and flat this side. This side will just naturally taper in, and I'm using my hand here to hold my strips together, because what I don't want is to be rolling the bead and the strips to be like this. I want them to stay together and roll together, and I want this side to roll flat. So I'm going to roll my bead. I can even keep my thumb there just to help guide everything. And when I think I'm getting to the end, I can just stop, and then I can apply some glue. Just make sure it goes onto all 3 layers. Make sure my layers are flat, and then just roll them round. Okay, now what you can see is that my end is not perfectly flat. That is not a problem. So what we're going to do is I'm just trying to get the glue off my thumbs, is we're going to take this off, and then we're going to squash it down. Okay, so we've got our bead off, and we can see that this is slightly domed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down on the surface, and I'm going to push it with my fingers downwards. And as you can see now, we have a much flatter base. And all I've done is just push those sides down to create a flatter base. So there we go, there is our first bead, and that is what is going to go in here, like so. So then what you can do is you can go ahead and make all of your other beads. So what I'll do is I'll do that, and then I'll be back and I'll show you how we're going to put the whole thing together. Okay, so I have a collection of beads now that I have made in a variety of different sizes, from small, medium to our large one. And this one is just this bead, but with an extra scrappy piece of paper put around it, just to kind of make it look a bit like a kind of, don't know what you'd call it, like a flying saucer-ish sort of shape. So what I need to do now is I now need to just start to kind of build up my what I want them to look like. So I definitely want to use this funky one. So I'm going to use a small bead, the funky bead, another small bead, and then I'm going to see if I can get a funky bead on. But what you need to make sure you're doing is leaving enough room on the end for this to go in and for it to be sturdy. So what you don't want is for only having like this much, because that won't lend itself to being a good strong fit. Then what you need to do is get some glue. Make sure I'm in the shot. Get some glue, kind of put the nozzle of the glue over it and kind of push some glue in. Does that make sense? So I've pushed some glue in. You don't want to push it in so far, but I do want to get some glue in there. And don't worry about this shape not being that sturdy. Once you get to the glazing part, it will all be good. Then what you do is you just poke your end in, and I'm going to put it down on the table, push it in so that it is nice and steady, push it in, and there we go. That is your completed clip holder. So let that dry, and then what you can do is you can go through your process of completing your beads, whether that is adding some glitter, adding some glaze, or anything you like. I will just show you what I have done with these ones. That's a little spare bead that I didn't use, so I could use that on my next ones. This is the first one I did, and I covered it in a little bit of glitter, and then I used some UV resin, and they are nice and solid, and also the beads are kind of sort of fused together. This was the second one that I made, and all I did with this one is literally I have just covered it in some let me just grab it, hold on, is this, which is just some cheap as chips glittery nail varnish, which I think came from like Poundland. So something like this has just given it a little bit of a glitter, and I might actually put some UV resin over the top of it, but I quite like it as it is. And then this last one, again, I have added some UV resin, and what I quite like about the UV resin is what it does is it kind of combines the beads into one. So rather than them looking like separate beads, it sort of combines them into one, and it looks like you've actually made it like this rather than it actually being a collection of individual beads. So there we go, that is how you make these. Everything you need for them will be in the description box. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please remember to leave a thumbs up if you have. Please also remember, Zoe, not to smash the camera. Please also hit the like button, and if you could leave a comment, that would be lovely, because I love seeing your comments. I love reading them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment box below. But for now, bye. Okay, so I've got a quick top tip for you. When I design these paper bead templates, your page will have a printable margin, and after that margin, your printer will not print. So I have to take this into account, which means that around the edge of your paper, you will always have like a little bit that's kind of not being used. Now, if you want to, you could cut that off, or if you want to, you can kind of actually cut into it and make it part of the paper bead strip, like so. So actually you're not wasting any. It's just that as part of printing them, your printer page will not go right to the edge. So if I designed them right to the edge, you could actually end up having bits chopped off. Now I've got another top tip for you. If you find that when you roll, you are quite a tight roller, we can all be either quite a tight roller or a loose, a bit like when we do knitting. Sometimes some of us are just quite a tight knitter or a loose knitter. One of the easiest ways to do that is to take your bead and just slightly twist back from the way that you were rolling. So if you were rolling that way, take your bead, slightly twist back, and then you should find that your bead just easily slides off, and it's not a problem.